Sakina, over to you.
It's an honor to invite Sharanaya Shastry ma'am and introduce. Let me give a quick introduction. Sharanaya Shastry is a preventive clinical nutritionist with a special interest in sports nutrition. She is a published author for newspapers like Deccan Herald, Bangalore Mirror, New Indian Express, and magazines like Femina and India Today, both online and offline versions, and has also conducted corporate webinars with companies like Titan on semiconductors, Fentelix, Johnson's Control, Avaya, Avnet, Tally Solutions, and many more. She holds her double masters in sports sciences and dietetics and applied nutrition from the renowned Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Udupi. She is also certified in bariatric nutrition and diabetes education. Her area of interests include recovery from sports injury and importance of nutrition among athletes, especially women. She has had hands-on training experience as a nutrition intern at St. John's Medical Hospital and as a student at Kasturba Hospital, Manipal. She is a life member of the Indian Dietetic Association and actively takes part in conferences related to nutrition and public health. It's an honor to introduce you, ma'am, and I welcome you to this session and ask you to please take lead on this session. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for that warm introduction. So I think without much delay, I would like to start off. So I think PCOD, I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am, it
Yeah.
is visible now.
Okay. So I think nutrition in PCOD, I think this is a very topic where everybody talks about what has to be done and how diet is connected, and if diet is really connected. You have so many people giving you insights, whether it's on social media, whether it's about a newspaper article. So we don't know what exactly is correct, what exactly to be eaten. I get so many young girls, they're so confused. So I think, why PCOD? So yeah, we know that it ranges, this is a rough prevalence, which I got this data from the National Health website. So it's about 5 to 15%, depending on the diagnostic criteria applied. So many times the diagnosis itself is not done because not everybody has a very significant symptom, right? So not everybody has, the common symptoms that we think of, which is like irregular menstrual cycles or putting on weight or obesity or facial hair or any other symptom like acidity, bloating. So not everyone, each one of them have these symptoms.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, your PPTs are not visible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it is the file is visible on the board.
Okay. Now is it fine?
No, ma'am. Only the file is visible. The PPTs are not shown here.
Okay. Just okay, I'll just share it once more.
Yes, ma'am. If you share it again.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Now the PPTs are visible.
Okay. Now is it clear?
Ma'am, it is completely fine.
Yeah, so like I was talking about the symptoms. So each time we read about any literature, we see certain symptoms like, irregular menstrual cycles, or we look at some, facial hair, or, acne, or these are all the common things which we keep seeing. But the problem is we don't really see these things in everybody. So diagnostic criteria or the diagnosis itself gets a little haywire, right? So that is why the prevalence is about this number, which, it could be more also, but may not be recorded. And exactly when they ask about the cause. So earlier when we started to get to know about PCOD, we always thought it's about obesity, it's about, inactive lifestyle. Yeah, there are also the probable reasons, but the exact cause, when you look at the literature, is still unknown. We don't know why that kind of an inflammation or the cellular inflammation is happening. So PCOD is nothing but polycystic ovarian disease. So we don't know why those cysts are coming in, or why those such kind of inflammatory, the cellular changes are happening inside the body. So commonly it's like you see in the slide, it's associated with excess, insulin, like the insulin resistance or production of male hormones, or also being overweight, but not every time it's about overweight. So a lot of these times these days, I don't know if you've heard about the lean PCOD. So earlier we always thought that people only who are overweight or obese are having this problem of PCOD because of the fat accumulation around the abdominal region, and that is the common reason where a lot of us used to ask people to lose weight. But also there is a new trend where lean PCOD is very commonly found these days. Girls are very lean, they're not in the overweight or the obese category, but still they have these cysts, and they have irregular menstrual cycles, and still they have these things like hair loss and pelvic pain. So yeah, it's not only about the weight. That is the first thing that I would like to clear, because many of the girls think that, oh, just because they're 5 kgs or 10 kgs overweight, they think they have a problem. No, it's definitely not about them. So that is where things like your diet, that is where things like what you eat, your lifestyle, especially the food and your exercise pattern and the sleep quality, your stress levels, all of that come into picture. Okay. So this low grade inflammation, what you see in the slide, so that is cellular level inflammation is very common. And I'll be talking about what kind of foods cause such inflammation, which can lead to, such problems in terms of, it can give you a back pain, a neck pain, a lethargy, and all of that. So that is about why PCOD. So if I have to put it in a nutshell, we don't really know the exact cause, but yes, certain attributed, factors are your lifestyle, sleep quality, the food. Mainly, it is about like 70 to 80% the food that you eat. And yes, to some level, genetics also, like, if your mother has had it and all of that. But that's, maybe a very small percentage, but mainly you can attribute it to your diet and lifestyle, especially among the reproductive age bearing group, like the women of today who are working, who are also multitasking. I mean, they may not be only at work, they also have a family, and they have a very stressful lifestyle. It's mostly due to that. So the next thing is, are PCOD and PCOS the same? So it's very invariably used, interchangeably used. So PCOD is the polycystic ovarian disease, where you see only one symptom, like one kind of a thing, like either the person is having irregular menstrual cycles, or they're having pelvic pain, or excess of bleeding, or just little bit of facial hair and all that. You see generally one or two, but PCOS is called a syndrome. So syndrome is when there are more than 2 to 3 things together. So syndrome is where you have like a couple of things or more than that. Like I said, maybe they're overweight also, they have a problem in menstrual cycles also, they have fatigue also, they have acne. So when 3-4 things comes together, then it's called a syndrome. So PCOD is when it starts with, like, where you see very 1 or 2 things initially, and then if it's untreated and if it's not really diagnosed at the correct time, then yeah, it tends to, it becomes like a syndrome where you have multiple things. Okay, so next slide is, yeah, does diet and PCOD connect, right? And I hope the slides are visible now.
They are visible.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So the diet and PCOD connect, because everywhere you see any newspaper article, you see anything, any social media influencer. I mean, these days I open Instagram, I have like so many videos coming on PCOD. There are like so many powders, there are like so many capsules, so many things coming in the market. So diet and PCOD connect. So I was trying to explain why PCOD. So now I'm trying to tell you what is the actual connect between this diet, that food we eat, and PCOD. So the first thing that most of us don't realize is dysbiosis. Okay, so dysbiosis may sound like a very fancy term, but it's nothing but about it's talking about your gut health, right? So gut is a very important thing which most of us don't realize. So we eat a lot of things. We actually torture our body in a very I think in a very different way by not filtering what we eat, especially when we are stressed or when we are worked up or we don't have time to cook. We are living in a different setup. You're not at home. You might be living in a PG or a hostel. So eating certain kinds of foods, especially when it is processed, when it is packaged, and when you're not eating on time, which is the case with most of the students, especially when you're having exams, and which is also the case in most of the, IT sector, or maybe anyone who has a sedentary lifestyle. So the good microorganisms that your gut has or your intestine has gets, flushed out. Also taking certain medications, certain medications over the counter without any doctor's prescription or a dietitian's prescription, and certain supplements, right? Like without you just took it because somebody else is taking it. So certain kinds of medications also flush out your gut bacteria. Okay, so gut bacteria, there are various bacteria in the gut, like lactobacilli, you have E. coli, and so many other bacteria, like millions of bacteria, which are very useful. So they are the ones which actually help in digestion. So digestion is, yes, the second step after you eat, that is ingestion. And more than digestion, there are two other steps which we have to keep in mind, which is absorption and assimilation. So all of us eat. So ingestion, yes, it is a tick. All of us have the digestion capability or the digestive capability, but the problem where most of us have, or where we go wrong, is with the absorption and assimilation, the two A's, right? So that's why each of us, we carry a different weight, we carry a different body, we carry a different metabolism. So the problem, or where the main trick is in your absorption and assimilation, when you do not have a good gut microbiome or a good set of microorganisms in the gut, the assimilation is different and the absorption doesn't happen. So the absorption, as in I'm talking about the micronutrient absorption, that is your calcium, your vitamins, your minerals, your iron, your selenium, zinc. So when those things go a little haywire, that is when you have a deficiency, you have a imbalance, right, in the body. So dysbiosis, so you can see the picture here, a normal gut. Okay, you can see, like, so you have bifidobacteria, lactobacilli, E. coli, like I was talking about. And then when you have a dysbiosis, dysbiosis is basically a shift in the gut bacteria. Okay, instead of having good gut bacteria, more of good and less of bad, there is a shift. So when that shift happens, you have some problem like acidity, you have some problem like bloating, you have something like a mood swing, all of that. So there's also a study by the Harvard which says that, your gut is directly connected to your brain. That is, good food, good mood really is true. So you eat good food, you feel good, then you have a good mood, right? Otherwise, you're either stressed, or you're not feeling up to the mark, or you're not feeling very nice about yourself. So yeah, food matters, what you eat matters, and there is a direct relationship between the gut and the brain. So your mood swings, the mood that you carry, is also dependent on the food that you eat. That's the gut brain axis. So yes, into certain people where you don't have a good lifestyle. So where is it all coming to? So whenever you have this constant exploitation of the gut, like let's say, for example, a person is staying in the hostel, and the person is not really getting good food. So the person is eating a lot of outside food. So this, goes to that dysbiosis, and then in future they are vulnerable to developing all these things like PCOD, especially a female. So the second thing is the insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is again dependent on the kind of food that we eat. So all of us have a staple food, whether it's dal, roti, rice, whatever. So whatever, I mean, I'm sure all of you here know that whatever food we eat, it's broken down to glucose, and then insulin is produced by our pancreas. It acts upon this, and, to break down the glucose, I mean, to lower the sugar levels and all of that. So, but certain foods, when we are again eating more of processed foods, more of maida, more of, certain pro-inflammatory foods, where I'm coming to, these foods can kind of put more pressure, or more, I can say, the insulin has to be produced under more pressure. And especially if the person is more having a accumulation of fat in the abdominal region, right? So especially the ladies, generally, that's why we say it's very important for you to train your muscles. It's not only about the cardio exercise, it's not only about the running and jogging. It's very important you do strength training, because whenever you have more of abdominal fat, then there is, inevitably there is more pressure on the pancreas or, to produce insulin. So when that pressure keeps becoming more, that is where you develop an insulin resistance. So insulin resistance can further lead to, the metabolic syndrome where a person can develop type 2 diabetes mellitus or hypertension. I mean, it's like a syndrome, like, one thing leads to another. So the food that you eat really matters. So I see a lot of people eating very fattening foods, like, the keto diet for example, it only makes you take in a lot of fat, right? So when you take such kind of very fattening foods, as it is, the energy that you need to break down a fat is more, because 1 gram of sugar needs only 4 kilocalories. But to break down 1 ml of oil or 1 gram of fat, you need 9 kilocalories. And especially when a person is having a lot of abdominal obesity, so there is natural pressure on that, pancreas to produce more insulin. And that's how it leads to insulin resistance in the longer run. And that is why the bottom line is, please avoid fancy diets and hashtag trends and stuff like that. So then coming to the pro-inflammatory books. So recently I've come up with a book, of mine, where it's called Are You a Vegetarian Suffering with Food Intolerance, where we talk about foods that are certain, they certainly cause inflammation in the body. So such foods, for example, are gluten. Okay, gluten is all your, gluten is found in your rotis, your breads, rava, semolina, all of these are consisting of gluten. And second thing is the non-vegetarian foods, especially red meat and chicken also to some extent. Okay, and the third thing is your dairy products, because these days the dairy that you get, especially in a metropolitan city, you don't really get fresh dairy. I mean, the milk that comes is not like, yeah, though it might come from a cow, but the cow is adulterated with a lot of hormones. So the paneer, the cheese, whatever you take, any dairy product is again, it's hormonally, it's hormone induced. So the dairy products, gluten, certain nuts and seeds. So certain seeds like, I will say sesame seeds, then certain nuts like almonds, certain nuts like walnuts, they are also known to cause inflammation in the body, the cellular inflammation up to an extent, and even soy products. So these are all the pro-inflammatory foods. And of late, we have also found that certain dals, especially tur dal, moong dal, urad dal, if not cooked properly, can cause some amount of, inflammation. And especially lentils like your rajma, your chole, your chickpea. Yes, so these are all the pro-inflammatory foods. So, but that doesn't mean that anybody who has PCOD should not have these foods, but it totally depends on that person's gut health. Okay, so if there is, so basically everything is interconnected. If you're having dysbiosis already, like if you're having a gut issue already, and if you're already on the, overweight side, or if you're extremely lean, so like I said, it's not only about obesity, it's also about being extremely malnourished, which has insulin resistance. Then when you take these pro-inflammatory foods like your gluten and whatever I mentioned now, so this can aggravate PCOD or lead to, cause PCOD. So this is how diet and PCOD is connected. Okay, apart from your lifestyle and stress, so these are the three important things. So what do we do? Because most of the times, I mean, too much of, now we have, I think, discussed too much of the problem and what has to be done, and, why the problem is and all of that. So with food, that's the main thing, is we need the solution. So wait it out. Okay. So it's no longer the BMI that's very important for all the girls here, or, even if the boys here, so that you tell the girls that, it's not only about the BMI, because I see a lot of people checking their BMI, they have apps for that. So BMI was important up to a certain extent, but no longer we look at BMI, especially if you're a sports person and all of that. It's BMR, and it's also WHR. BMR is your basal metabolic rate. That is how much of calories can you burn even if you're not doing anything, like even at a sedentary pace. what is the amount of calorie that your body can burn, and it's WHR, which is the waist is to hip ratio. So waist is to hip ratio is, your waist in centimeter divided by your hip in centimeter, which indicates your abdominal obesity. So for a female, generally it has to be around 0.8, the ratio I'm talking about, and for a male it has to be around 1. But since it's here we're discussing females and PCOD, so it's important that every female here, should have an idea about the waist is to hip ratio. Okay, and not only focus on weight loss and trying to lose weight and trying to weigh a particular amount on the weighing scale. So for a narrow waist, like all of us want to know, include a teaspoon of homemade ghee. Not only for a narrow waist, yes, but it's also for, the butyric acid or the butyrate that it contains. It's good for people who are having trouble with the skin, and who have trouble with the scalp, especially if you have a dry scalp. And 1 teaspoon of ghee on your roti or any of the staple food once a day is very good. I mean, because it is also, it acts as a healthy fat, so you don't really feel very hungry, and it gives you satiety both psychologically and physiologically. So sabudana, again, that's your sago. It's very good for weight loss. So at least make sure you have it twice a week in your diet. Like I've written, sabudana idli, sabudana vada, sabudana khichdi, whichever, part of the country that you come from, whatever is prevalent in your region. And gods really guard you. So for all those people who have problems with your menstrual cycles or weight loss, or if you feel your metabolism is a little slow, so make sure you're having any gourd preparation. Like I've put one here, like a lauki or a bottle gourd paratha, and sabudana khichdi also you can see. So these are all just like, this is an idea. You can any day be creative and innovative. So bajra khichdi or jowar. So millet is very good for people, again, if you're having trouble, because you also know that gluten, if you feel that gluten is already giving you problems, so you can substitute gluten with your bajra or jowar. So basically any millet. Okay, so if you are in south, then you can ragi or foxtail or quinoa is a very popular millet. Otherwise, if you're from the north, then jowar roti or bajra khichdi or bajra roti, anything is fine. So once in 2 days to keep you fitter and slimmer. And also these are antioxidant kind of a diet, so they don't really cause any dysbiosis, or if you're already having a problem with your gut, they will not aggravate it. Okay. And the second thing is, I would like to call it be flawless and fearless, because I know when it's about acne, when it's about hair loss, it also gets onto our nerves a little bit, because it's about the looks. And I'm sure every one of us, each one of us, we want to look our best. So for people who have again had a lot of, for girls who are facing a lot of hair loss and due to hormonal imbalances, if you're having a lot of acne and all of that, like especially dry skin, so garden cress seed, or it's also known as sabja seed. So, make a laddu out of it overnight, soak it in milk. It's the natural beauty pill, because any day resorting to something which has a lot of chemicals onto your skin is not good. So no, a natural, garden cress seed laddu or overnight soaked in milk is very good. So milk here, again, be careful. If you're living in a metropolitan, I don't really suggest you take the dairy coming from, the animal part, because I'm not really sure about the quality of it. So try to switch to plant sources like a coconut milk or maybe rice milk, or even these days you have potato milk, almond milk and all of that. So try to avoid the dairy. I will not say totally cut it down, but be careful with the consumption. Maybe 1 glass of milk is enough if you're already having these problems, and if you're a little on the overweight side. And make sure that you're taking the toned milk, and or you're removing the cream. Okay. And the coconut is I think south may everybody uses coconut, so I don't really have to stress, but coconut for stronger hair. So again, coconut in form of laddu or cold pressed coconut oil or chutney. So make sure you're using coconut, because this is also really good for your nerves. Okay, so the myelin sheath covering is really, it makes the myelin sheath stronger, and it also keeps you cooler. So people who have mood swings, irritability, anxiety, because sometimes PCOD can also take a toll on your mental health. So for that, coconut is really good. So maybe you can just have 2 to 3 pieces of dry coconut, or grate it and make a salad out of it, whatever you can do. So make sure you include coconut. And people who are vegetarians here, so for I'm sure you already have a lot of these cosmetics coming with eggs, like the egg yolk and all of that. But have a boiled egg, like have the whole egg again, okay? Like, but again, make sure that it's that organic egg, at least the source, and one boiled egg in a day is not at all a problem. But having said that, yes, your physical activity levels matter. If you're having a very sedentary lifestyle, and if you're not working out, and if you're just eating, then yes, because that's when you can put on weight. But if you're quite active, and I'll be talking about that in the next slide, but have a boiled egg. It's for your good skin and hair. So a citrus a day makes you glow every day. So especially now it's summer. So, kokum is the, local fruit, seasonal fruit, lemons, oranges, mangoes. Okay. So mangoes are also a good source of vitamin C. So melons. So, but the whole thing is, how much of fruit do you really need to have is the question. So make sure you're not mixing 2 to 3 fruits, especially because fruits are naturally sugar. Okay, they are naturally they consist of fructose. So make sure you're having, like, one fruit, or maybe whatever fits in your one palm. Okay, that's the quantity that you can have. And don't juice them, and don't make fruit salads, because you're again taking in a lot of sugar. So one fruit, how much ever fits in your one palm, is the ideal quantity. And the best time to have a fruit is in the morning, or maybe in the evening between 4 to 6. So don't really have something sweet post 7 p.m. And curry leaves keeps your worries away. So eat them instead of keeping them aside on a plate, okay? Because they're also rich sources of iron that I don't really have to say, but it's also good for your skin and hair. Especially, I know, like, when it's, especially, with acne and hair fall and things like that, these are all the superfoods that you must add. So here I put a small tomato chutney, and it's not necessarily that you have to take only tomato, but make sure that any vegetable skin chutney, whether it's tomato, whether it's onion, whether it's, anything, like even the jackfruit seed, right? So you can, make a chutney out of it, so that, it also gives good texture to your hair and skin. Okay. So hormonally vibrant. So most of the times people, girls with PCOD, I see them also having hypothyroidism. So, sometimes it goes along, it goes hand in hand. So in that case, yes, horse gram is very good. Horse gram, H for horse gram and H for healthy thyroid. So make sure that you have horse gram. And even otherwise, if you're having, all these irregular menstrual cycles, and, problem with losing weight, if you're already on the obese side, make sure that you're having good quality protein, and especially horse gram for a vegetarian. If you're a strict vegetarian where you don't even take egg, then horse gram really works. Okay. And dry coconut, like I was talking about, that's also going to help you to keep thyroid at bay. Okay. So horse gram, I've just, it's not necessary that you always have it as a sprout, because in some women it can cause acidity, bloating. So you can also make it like a soup. And here I've just put that horse gram salad, where you can boil it. Okay, you can sprout it, boil it, and then also you can add grated, coconut, and whatever, the taste is totally upon you. And seed cycling for irregular cycles. So some girls, like I said, PCOD, they need not have other symptoms or other things like acne and facial hair and things like that. If it's only irregular cycles, along with exercise, seed cycling definitely works. So seed cycling is, like I've written in the same order, it's flaxseed, pumpkin seed, sunflower, followed by sesame. Okay, so 2 tablespoons each. So first week you have flaxseed, and followed by pumpkin, sunflower, and before your period you can have your sesame seed. So that kind of helps in regulating your estrogen and progesterone. So that's very good if you can follow. That can be followed by anyone. If at all you feel that you're having a very stressful lifestyle, and your cycles are not really getting regular, you can have this. That's a natural way. Okay. And salmon, people who are non-vegetarians, salmons are really good. They also, sometimes can cause inflammation, but that's why stick to fresh salmons. Bangalore is not a coastal area, so I don't really recommend fish here. But if you are close to a coastal area, or if you know that this particular food is coming from, a fresh source, then I suggest you have salmons, at least twice a week for regulating menstrual cycles. But yes, the method of cooking matters. If you're again having a fry, of an oily form, then it's not really beneficial. It's better you always steam it, okay, and maybe add a little bit of ginger, garlic, any of your spices, or you make a curry, but make sure that there is no deep frying. Okay, so moving on, then comes the strength and flexibility. So PCOD along with food is not just about, like I said, 70% food, but there's also, the other 30% that can be attributed to sleep, that can be attributed to exercise. So when I'm talking about exercise here, I see most of them only doing the aerobic or the cardio exercises where they just want to lose weight along with some fancy diets and crash diets. Okay, but that's not really going to help you, because losing weight should happen, physiologically. So it's not just about losing few kgs on the weighing scale. So it's very, very important that I, put this picture of this lady in this doing this yoga posture, that you please start strength training, especially women. Maybe from the age of 20-25 can start strength training. So strength training doesn't mean you have to look muscular or lift heavy weights, but it's about doing bare minimum and basic exercises for your core. Core means your abs, okay, and your lower body. Lower body is basically your thighs, your calves, and your pelvic region, and for your back, especially the spine. Okay, so that when you're aging, when you're around 45-50, you don't really have a lower back pain, or you don't have problem with your bones. So it's very important that you focus on strength training along with whatever yoga, jogging or dancing or running that you do. And food wise, badam gives you aram. So all these people who have, who feel that you are feeling very tired, or you're feeling exceptionally lethargic, start your day with soaked peeled almonds. So please don't have them raw, that because they contain a lot of phytic acids or phytates. So it's always better to have soaked almonds and peeled almonds. And ragi, this is for all the women who are, probably in their late 30s or early 30s. So ragi is like the South Indian, famous millet, which is very rich in calcium. So if you're not really fond of ragi, you can also substitute it with barnyard. Okay, so anything made out of ragi and barnyard, which is a good source of calcium, it's also a source of iron, and it gives strength to your bones. So maybe a ragi dosa, ragi roti, ragi laddu, anything, right? And kokum, this is again a seasonal thing which is usually available in the Western Ghats. So this is very rich in manganese. So because most of the people or women with PCOD, they have sleep disturbances. So they're not really able to sleep well, or they're not really, getting that sound sleep. So it also improves bone health, and it reduces the inflammation in the body. Okay, so kokum juice or kokum sharbat, or if kokum is not there, anything which is vitamin C rich, okay, like even a lemonade or even like a tomato salad, anything. So please have that. The last point is very important. So if you're a vegetarian, like I said, like a strict vegetarian, homemade pickle, especially, a mango or a lemon pickle, is extremely good for your B12. Okay, and feel free to include a daily serving of homemade buttermilk and homemade pickle with meals. This also takes care of your craving, because I see a lot of these people with PCOD, they have a lot of these hormonal, imbalances, and that is why craving is a very predominant thing. I'll be talking about that in the further slide. So, but please feel free to include only a homemade pickle, okay? Underline the word homemade, and a homemade buttermilk, or, both of them in your diet without any hesitation, right? And that solves your micronutrient deficiencies. So like I was talking about the craving. So craving indicates a micronutrient deficiency. So not every craving is always about the hormones. We always put it on, hormones, that, it's because of PMS, it's because of XYZ stuff. So it's not always about hormones. Yes, in certain cases, it can be due to that. but most often craving is indicating of a micronutrient deficiency. So what do I mean by that? So most often what happens whenever somebody is having a PCOD or a PCOS, they're mostly trying to lose weight. So in that whole process of losing weight, you're cutting down on carbs, you're cutting down on, you're increasing your protein, you're increasing your fiber and all of that. So you start eating in a very imbalanced proportion. You're eating less roti, less rice, but more of vegetable, more of dal. So this makes you micronutrient deficient. You're not getting the correct amount of amino acids, because generally what happens whenever we have this cereal pulse combination, it's always because the cereal is, I think even in the last talk I had spoken about this, the cereal is deficient of a few amino acids, and the pulse like your dals and lentils are deficient of a few amino acids. When you eat them in that proportion, the equal proportion, you're getting best of both. But what we are doing when we are trying to lose weight and we want to get good results, quick results rather, we decrease the quantity of the cereal, that is our roti, rice, whatever, and we increase the quantity of this, dal, pulse or the lentil. So with that, we are not getting the sufficient amount of amino acids. And when we don't get that, we are generally deficient. So we don't get enough calcium, we don't get enough selenium, we don't get enough zinc. So that is why we feel very hungry, especially in that 4 to 7 p.m. And most of the women crave for a sweet post lunch. Maybe they crave for something tangy post lunch. So evening slot is the main, problematic slot, especially around this 4:30, 5 o'clock. So including a wholesome meal between the 4 to 7 p.m. helps. Instead of having something like a junk food, instead of having a pastry, instead of having something like a biscuit. So plan a wholesome meal between the 4 to 7 p.m. And the best solution for this is, if you really crave for tangy foods or sweets, a teaspoon of jaggery or ghee, like I have written, with dates, okay? But it should all be like a teaspoon, not more than that. Drinking water from your matkas really help. And that is why I think in the olden days, people drank water from those matkas, because these matkas naturally have copper, zinc, and selenium. And a vegetable peel or a seed chutney, which I was talking about, like either a ginger chutney or a garlic chutney, something, okay? You don't really need that in a lot of quantity. Maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons, okay, with lunch will really make, this craving go down by a lot, by a large extent. So that's about the craving. So ABC, this is again very common, which goes undiagnosed and undetected in the PCOD thing. So most of the women have this acidity, bloating, and constipation, and they don't really like to address it or talk about it. So acidity, bloating, constipation, the main reason is because of dysbiosis, which I explained in the earlier slides. So spice is a blessing in disguise. The Indian cuisine is so I can say diverse, and it's I cannot say one size fits all to the Indian cuisine. So with every 10 or probably 100 kilometer, the tadka and the spices that we use change. So even in PCOD, it's very important, in order to have a good metabolism or a metabolic rate, it's important that you have your, digestion or the digestive ability at par. Okay, so like I was talking about the digestion, digestion happens in everyone, right? But it's about the absorption and assimilation that we need to focus on. So certain spices, when used in the right quantity, again, please note the right quantity and in the right way, helps you to, lower your cholesterol levels or lower your acidity, lower your bloating. So I see a lot of people who generally avoid using spices when they have acidity. So acidity is not really because of, the spice content. It's because of your irregular eating habit or irregular, timing, or the imbalance in the way that you're eating. Okay, so use hing or asafoetida or garlic in buttermilk as a part of cooking, which aids in digestion. So I see a lot of people who drink jeera water, who drink ajwain water, who drink, like, ginger water, things like that. So spices in general are best absorbed only in an oily medium. That is the food chemistry. Okay. So certain spices are best absorbed in an oily medium and certain spices are best absorbed in a water medium. So that's called a sensory evaluation of food chemistry. So now if I add ginger in water, right? Ginger is best absorbed in water. So that is why when we're making tea, we add ginger in water, allow it to boil, and then we add the milk. Now, if I add jeera or methi in water, okay, methi is best absorbed in an oily medium. So that is why we add methi seeds, we add mustard seeds, we add all these jeera seeds into the tadka, in the oil. Now, when I add methi in water, it's actually not giving me any benefit, right? So I'm just drinking it like, two different components. So this kind of aggravates your acidity, it aggravates your bloating and all of that. So please make sure that you're adding the right things in the right way. Okay, so jeera or cumin again can be added in water, but when you little boil them or when you can make them a little lukewarm. Okay, so but the best way is always make sure that you're adding your jeera in your tadka. Okay, and feel free to add ginger. Like I said, ginger in tea, ginger in chutney is always better. And cardamom or cinnamon has to be always there in a fat soluble or a milk medium. So this and spices should not be taken in large quantities. They are only meant to be taken in small quantities. And finishing the meal with any curd-based preparation or home-set curd is extremely necessary or good for preventing bloating. Okay, and also make sure that girls who are generally having these PCOD, they don't really lie down immediately after eating. Okay, because especially if it's work from home or if you're not physically very active and don't really sleep. Okay, so make sure that 90 minutes at least post a meal you're not lying down. And rice is nice, that's very important. I just thought of adding that here because a lot of girls, whom I meet, they really think that having rice makes them put on weight, and they totally cut down on rice. So rice in terms of maybe in terms of biryani or in some other form which is ready made is a problem, yes. But when you're making rice at home, if it is home cooked and if you're having dal chawal or rice and rasam, that's not at all a bad combination. In fact, it's very good on your gut because like you can see, it's rich in B complex and it's gluten free, and it can also be, you get fortified rice these days, like, rice fortified with iron, calcium and all of that. So include any rice based preparation. So it could be even a khichdi, it could be a porridge, it could be, just normal dal chawal combination. So please make sure that you're having one serving of rice, of course, with all the vegetables and the probiotics and the, equal proportions of the dal. And make sure that, like I said, you're not immediately lying down after a dinner, you're not having a very heavy dinner. And for people who have constipation, because most of the women do have constipation, which is sometimes whenever PCOD is coupled with thyroid, they generally have this problem and they don't realize it. So start your day with overnight soaked black raisins because they act as natural laxatives. And even banana, when you have a fresh, like, a banana in the morning, especially on waking up, they're also good laxatives. So good food is good mood, like I said. So sometimes PCOD or PCOS, when it is a little severe, it also takes a toll on your mental health. It's connected, it's relatable. So you sometimes have anxiety, you can have depression, you can have mood swings and all of these. So food, like I was talking about the gut brain axis, like I was talking about, how food is related directly to how you feel because of the production of serotonins, endorphins. Like I said, so instead of eating a chocolate or instead of having something which is processed, it's always better to eat a banana. So banana is the best stress buster and a mood booster. So if you're talking about which banana in specific, then if you're talking about that bigger banana, take the center portion. And if you're talking about the smaller elakki banana, have the entire one. So lean meat, like I was talking about steamed fish or chicken, even in the soup form. So when stressed, it really helps. Okay. And any dry fruit laddu or a smoothie. So as a best mid-morning snack, okay, because they again produce your serotonin. So instead of relying on a dark chocolate or a pastry or something which is caffeine based, then I think you can have something like a dry fruit laddu or a smoothie. But having said that, caffeine is not bad, because most of the girls ask me if they should not really have caffeine at all. So 1 to 2 glasses of coffee or a tea, like I've mentioned in this proportion, that's a good mood elevator, okay, because it produces again dopamine and norepinephrine. So yeah, these are all, the things that you can do. But if things are going beyond your control, if it's really depressing you, and if you really have bad mood swings or anxiety, then it's always better to talk to a therapist. But I don't think initially that should be that's the solution. So food always is the natural way, or natural food is always the first, should be the first priority. So immunity, intestine. So like I was talking about the gut health. So it's also, gut health is the one that decides your intestinal immunity. So immunity is the power of a person to, stay strong, stay fit. I think most of you know enough about immunity after the COVID. So like how Rome wasn't built in a day, in one night, you cannot have your immunity also, built in one night, right? With all these pills. So there's no magical pill or a powder that can boost your immunity. So keep your gut healthy. And if you keep your gut healthy, your immunity will also be good. So even for people with PCOD, the immunity might be slightly compromised because their gut may not be that great, right? Because that is why they have problem in digestion, assimilation, as all of these. So for girls with PCOD, make sure you're having colocasia. This is very good for any, of your autoimmune disorders. It also decreases the inflammation. It's very good for constipation, good source of iron, makes you lose weight. All of these. Mutton leg soup, again, very good for your bones, very good if you're feeling very tired. I mean, it's very good to relieve fatigue, and taste from waste. So anything, like I was talking about the vitamin C rich, so lemon peel curry, mango curry, orange peel curry, kokum juice, all of this, because you have a good gut health. Naturally, your hormones are good, your body feels light, you lose weight, and PCOD is gone. Okay, turmeric, turn a trick. So very good antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. I think I did not talk about turmeric. There's so much about turmeric. So turmeric milk or turmeric in dal, sambar, whatever, wherever you can add turmeric, and make sure you're adding turmeric, right? So a few frequently asked questions. So does weight loss help in terms of PCOD? Yes, weight loss helps, but I'm not talking about weight loss. I'm not talking about, in terms of kgs, like 3 kg, 5 kgs of weight. More than weight loss, I'm talking more on lines of fat loss, for which strength training is important. So along with your cardio exercise or the aerobic exercise, it's important that you strength train. So that is build more on the lean muscle mass. Okay. So for that, it could be like, I'm repeating, core exercises, lower body exercises, and your back exercises. Okay. And is it mandatory to avoid gluten and dairy? So dairy, I think I've already given you all my take on dairy. If you're in a metropolitan city, if you're getting dairy in a packet, I would say switch to plant-based dairy like coconut milk, rice milk, oat milk. But if you're still very, habituated to having this dairy, then I would say that you take it, but in a very restricted quantity, maybe like 1 glass of milk a day, but also it totally depends on your symptoms. Like if you're having a lot of acne, if you're having a lot of skin issues, then yes, dairy is not really suggested. Coming to gluten, again, it has to be totally customized. So if the person is already having acidity, bloating, constipation, IBS, lot of digestion problems, if the person is already feeling very heavy, then yes, you need to check for the gluten intolerance, and it can help, but not necessary that everybody has to do this. It is totally dependent on the individual. Is it necessary to take supplements? So coming to the supplement part, it depends again on the person's requirements. So if the girl is having a PCOD and she's an athlete and she's very frequently training, she's having tournaments and she's performing, then yes, she might need supplements, because the food alone may not be substantiating or doing justice. And second scenario would be where a female is having a lot of intolerance, suppose she's not tolerating gluten, dairy and stuff like that, so then she may need supplements, but everything needs in one-on-one consultation with a very qualified dietitian or a nutritionist. You cannot just take things over the counter and decide on your own as to this is good and this is bad. But my personal advice would be that you always meet someone, have a one-on-one consultation instead of just buying supplements or powders over the counters, because these powders, whenever they call themselves natural, herbal, XYZ things, they only claim, but we really don't know if they're really natural, if they're really made out of plants and things like that, right? So it's always better, be very watchful, be very watchful with the labels. Please keep reading the labels. So generally maltodextrins are not really good for PCOD, and you also have polysorbates, which are in these ice creams and in the gels, the food gels, canned foods, processed foods. These are also not really good for PCOD. So please keep reading the labels. Though it says there are no added sugars, no sweeteners, please look for these words, because they are most of the times there in the food product. And is it a permanent issue? So it's not really a permanent issue. It's only about how you manage. So I have seen many people who have PCOD and who have again dealt with it very well. So it's totally dependent on your diet and lifestyle. So to the ones who are, full of wonders here, weight is not an indicator of your beauty, fitness, and health. So that's the first thing that I think all of us should understand, because PCOD is generally, people think that, they look ugly or they are not looking up to the mark. So go guilt-free, eat fresh, eat cultural, eat natural. So low cal over low calorie. Keep yourself away. That's the first thing that you can do when it comes to fancy diets and hashtags. So women symbolize compassion, empathy, and love. So don't really worry about your flat stomach or particular number on the weighing scale. Well, all of us want a good skin and flat stomach and want to look healthy. But initially, it's all about, what you can do naturally and what you can do to keep yourself healthy, and weight loss will come naturally as a byproduct. Okay. So thank you very much. And it was lovely talking. And I think I've given my insights to, all of you. And I think I'm open to take questions.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Shweta. Ma'am, my question was actually that all the things you mentioned, the diet and all, actually, my sister is also having a PCOD problem, and she tried everything like seed cycling and from the doctors and the 4 years of all the medications and everything natural, and still now she is so devastated that she's left everything aside, that she's always depressed, always headache. What should
So,
I suggest her?
you're saying she tried everything, and after
Because
that, what happened?
she's so upset with everything.
Yeah.
She just tried everything, and now she's just so depressed that not the medication, not the lifestyle, nothing is working. And it's already 5 years, so she just gave up on everything.
Right. So Shweta, it depends on the person to person. So for some people, even exercise matters, like, what kind of exercise you're doing. And the diet also, it cannot be customized. So whatever I gave you now was in general, what are the things that people should look at. So when it needs a very customized diet plan, and it also, you need to understand a person's genetics here. Okay, like if somebody is already a little broad framed, we can't really expect that person to come into a very thin frame. So you need to study the person's genetics, a person's body composition. Okay, like body composition as in how much is the visceral fat and how much is the muscle weight, the bone weight, all of that, and also the kind of exercise they do. So for me, if yoga helps, maybe for the other person, yoga may not help. So in that also, they need to do certain kinds of exercise which will, increase the blood flow to the ovaries and, help in regulating the hormones. So consistency is the main thing that I can say, because without having seen her and met her, and I don't know much about it, so I can say consistency and customization. So 2 C's are very important. So please ask her not to lose hope, because it's not a very deadly thing or a very dangerous thing. All you need to do is a little bit of customization and consistency.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. So anything else? I mean, if there's any other question.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
could you please emphasize on the
the
type of
difference between
exercise?
PCOS and PCOD.
No, I think two people were talking. I didn't really catch the question. Can you come again?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Ma'am, the question was what's the difference between PCOS and PCOD? People usually
Yeah.
are confused between this.
Yeah, so PCOD is when you only have one thing, like when you see only one or two things. Maybe initially you will see irregular menstrual cycles, or you will initially see only some hair fall, or some acne. So one or two problems initially is just PCOD, where you're only putting on weight, but you don't have other problems like facial hair, you don't have other problems like acne, you don't have other problems like acidity, bloating, mood swings, depression, anxiety. So that is PCOD. It's just a disease, like, polycystic ovarian disease or a disorder, just one or two things. So when more than 2 or 3 things come together, like now you have weight gain, you have hair loss, you have excess of facial hair, you have irregular menstrual cycles. So when many things come together, then it is PCOS, which is nothing but a syndrome. So many things coming together is a syndrome. If it's only one thing or two things, then it's PCOD. So PCOD generally gets into PCOS, which is a syndrome, when it's not treated, when you don't really get it diagnosed at the right time.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, could you please emphasize on the type of exercise? Like, is brisk walking a remedy? Or
Yeah, so exercise is a very tricky part. So when it comes to exercise, so like I was telling the other girl here, exercise for you, brisk walking or yoga or jogging, that what works for you may not work for the other one. So brisk walking cannot be the only remedy. Maybe for you, brisk walking may be the remedy. So for that, it's very, very important you study the body type and the body composition. So if you are an ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, so there are 3 things. So ectomorph is someone who has been on a little heavier side from before, right? And mesomorph is someone who is the medium-sized person, not very by birth, not very heavy or not too, neither too lean or neither not too fat. And endomorph is someone who's been very lean ever since they were born, like ever since you see them since school days, they are very lean. So depending on the kind of body composition that you carry, like if you're a person who is already a little chubby, like normal since birth, for them, that is why you cannot say this exercise works. So generally what you need to do is you need to couple it with strength training. So if you're a person who is in that overweight category, or if you're on that side where you're by birth very plumpier, you have to do strength training 3 to 5 days a week, along with your brisk walking / yoga / running / jogging. So strength training includes, like I said, core strengthening, back strengthening, and lower body strengthening. Yes, you can also work on your biceps, triceps, chest, all of that, but mainly strength training, intense strength training, about 20 to 25 minutes, along with your cardio exercise. Cardio is whatever you were talking about. So there is no like one exercise fits all. It totally depends on your body composition. So that's for you to analyze which category you fall into.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes.
once you are diagnosed with PCOD or PCOS something,
Yeah.
what are the further complications you should really take care of? What can be the possible complications?
Yeah. So PCOD generally gets coupled with hypothyroid. So I see sometimes women with PCOD also developing thyroid abnormality. So it's better you always keep a tab on your thyroid, especially the TSH. Second thing is generally women with PCOD, they tend to absorb a lot of abdominal fat. So you will see that their waist is to hip is quite big, right? The body, the structure might be small, the shoulders, but they tend to put on a lot of weight around the pelvic region. So it's always better that you check for your blood sugars, because whenever you put on a lot of weight around the pelvis, in the longer run, you tend to develop insulin resistance, which can lead to type 2 diabetes mellitus. So second thing is you need to check your blood sugars very often, not very often, but at least make sure that you're getting it checked once in 3 to 6 months. You're not in the pre-diabetic, range. That's a cause of concern. And also cholesterol levels, because again the visceral fat, because the visceral is your main region, so fat around the liver, so most of the women tend to have grade 1 fatty liver. So it's always better that you keep checking your cholesterol levels. So I think thyroid, cholesterol levels, that's your lipid profile, and your blood sugars. So these are like, the metabolic syndrome that we call. So these are the three things that generally, if PCOD, PCOS people, if they are having PCOD, PCOS, they have to be, they're more vulnerable. I will not say everyone will develop that, but they have to be more cautious about these three things.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, like getting two period cycles in 1 month, or like having a gap of 1 month and getting your periods in the alternate month, is that alone a symptom of PCOS, or like is it normal for a person? Like a person whose period cycle is not just 4 weeks, maybe it can be 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Is it normal?
So generally, the normal period cycle is no longer we say 28 days, the normal thing. I think that's a very textbookish number. Generally, anything between even 30 to 35 days, is normal. So if you're getting a cycle once in 30 to 35 days is also normal. Sometimes I have seen certain literature which says even up to 40 days, like once in 40 days also, as long as it's happening regularly, it is still normal. So anything which is happening regularly, 30 to 35 days, or maybe 30 to even 40 days is normal. But 28 days is very ideal, which is quite hard to see in today's times. So I think you can take a number of 30 to once in 30 to 35 days cycle is normal, maximum up to 40, but make sure that anything over and above that, like if it's once in 2 months, once in 3 months, then yes, it needs an evaluation, because that's not normal. So getting it very frequently, like once in 15-20 days is also not normal. And once in a, maybe once in 60 days or once in 50 days is also not coming under the normal category. So I think the normal median number could be 30 to 35 days.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am. I had
Yes.
one more question. Ma'am,
Okay.
I wanted to know what is exactly the seed cycling?
Okay, so seed cycling is where you take 4 different kinds of seeds. So it is flaxseed, pumpkin seed, sunflower, and sesame. It's in this order. So generally, you don't take these seeds during the period. While a girl is on period, they don't take these seeds. Once the girl has done with her period, okay, like so, or maybe if you've still not got your period, you generally know your estimated last monthly period date, right? So you know that you will get the period by next month. So after a period, you can start the first week after a period, you will generally take 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. So how you take it doesn't matter. You can dry roast it, or you can take it directly, or you can put it onto your yogurt or anything. Second week is generally pumpkin seed, again 2 tablespoons a day. Third week is sunflower seed, and the fourth week is sesame seed. Especially even sesame, if it is black sesame, it's much more preferred than the white sesame. So this order generally works with people who have PCOD and who have hormonal imbalance. So basically, it balances your estrogen and progesterone.
Thank you, ma'am.
So anything else? Any other thing? Any other question? Anything else? So I think thank you very much, for this very, uh, you know, uh, interesting participation, and thank you very much for having me. It was very nice. It was very interactive, and thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was such a good session. Thank you for your enlightenment.